In 1995, in a small town in Puerto Rico, 8 sheep were found dead. Not a totally uncommon occurrence. Local predators would often go after livestock if they had an opportunity. But the weird thing about these sheep is that they all had 3 small circular puncture wounds in their chests, and they were completely drained of blood. Today, we're talking about the Chupacabra, and if a monster like that could actually exist. Over the course of the summer of 1995, about 150 farm animals and pets were reportedly killed in similar fashion, and one woman claimed to have caught a glimpse of the beast that was responsible. She reported a small bipedal monster with big eyes and spikes on its back. Here's an image of what the beast looked like based on her complete description. Pretty chilling. But modern-day descriptions of Chupacabra don't really look like that. Most modern descriptions describe a 4-legged animal with no spikes and eyes that are pretty proportional, at least by Earth standards. Before we get too far into the modern stuff, though, let's take a look back, because even though the term Chupacabra was first used in 1995, there were sightings of a monster that fits the description before that. 20 years before, in 1975, there was a series of livestock killings in the town of Moca. At first, these killings were attributed to satanic cults, but as the killings spread, the myth of El Vampiro de Moca was born. In English, the name just means the vampire of Moca, and it was believed that this monster was making its way around Puerto Rico, killing as it needed to feed. And much like the Chupacabra sightings of 1995, these animals all had small circular puncture wounds and were drained of blood. And we can even go back from before El Vampiro de Moca. There are reports dating all the way back to the 1930s that have those same wounds and blood loss. And even though those reports go back almost 100 years, the term El Vampiro de Moca wasn't used until 1975. And then in 1995, we started using Chupacabra instead. I wasn't able to find any first-hand descriptions of Chupacabra before 1995, so it seems like up until then, no one saw the beast, they just saw the aftermath. It is worth noting that there were some UFO sightings around the same time, but that kind of gets more into the territory of cattle mutilations, so we can save that discussion for another video. Anyway, the point here is that the first actual description came out in 1995. And you know what else came out in 1995? The movie Species. Species was a sci-fi horror movie about a weird killer alien who, guess what, had spikes coming out of her back. And guess what else? The witness who gave the description that sounded like the movie admitted that they had just watched that movie. Now, there is actual documentation of dead animals, so I can't really argue that point, but it does seem more than coincidental that someone described an alien monster very similar to the one in a horror movie that they just watched. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thing was just some kind of viral marketing thing to try and drum up some publicity for the movie. Now look, I'm not saying that all the reports are fake, I'm just saying that maybe some of them were driven by fear. Or maybe money. Okay, so now on to the modern reports. Most of the modern reports don't really describe it as a reptilian spiky-backed alien thing, like how it was reported in 1995. Most modern reports kind of sound like it might just be a mangy dog. And, well, in my opinion, that's probably what they saw. Basically, we can break these sightings into 3 distinct waves. The first wave was only from Puerto Rico, and was just reports of dead animals drained of blood. The second wave of reports came from Puerto Rico and Mexico in the mid to late 90s, and was very similar to the first wave, consisting mostly of reports of animals drained of blood, and the one famous description from 1995. The last wave of reports I was able to find were all from the US and all after 2004, and consisted only of sightings. And most of these sightings just sounded a lot like mangy dogs. I was also able to find some supposed videos of a chupacabra, but honestly, those videos really just look like a mangy dog. In my opinion, if any of the reports are real, it would probably be the ones from Puerto Rico, and maybe some of the ones from Mexico as well. The reports from Mexico, and especially the reports from Puerto Rico, have actual animal killings associated with them, whereas the modern reports from the US are always just sightings. I'll leave a link to the reports map so you can check it out if you want, but really all the modern reports seem to just be sightings of mangy animals. So I do think that some of these reports could be legit, just not the ones from the US. So let's take a look at the ones that are probably real and see if we can figure out what this creature would actually look like. Well, if we're going from the spiky-backed reptilian looking thing, I think it could possibly be an accurate description of a real animal. I mean, have you ever seen a chameleon? Lengthen those spikes a little bit and put it on its back legs, and you basically have a chupacabra. And before we get too far into this section, I just want to be clear that I'm going off of the reptilian descriptions because the other descriptions just sound like a mangy dog. And we already know that those exist, so we don't really have any hypotheticals to consider there. So anyway, let's take a look at some of these artist renditions of what it might look like. We'll start with this one. I'm not a huge fan of this one because there are a few biological inconsistencies. First, let's take a look at the head. The first big thing here that I have an issue with is the eyes. Now, I don't have an issue with the size, but it's more an issue of the placement. Eyes on the side of the head like that usually mean that the animal is a prey animal. For prey, it's more important to have a wide range of vision, so they're more likely to spot a predator before it has a chance to pounce on them. Predators, on the other hand, usually have both eyes facing forward. It helps to gauge depth and gives clearer vision where their head is pointing, which is very helpful when you're trying to pursue prey. But let's go back to an animal we just talked about, the chameleon. Chameleons actually can kind of do both. Not only can they move their eyes independently from each other, but they also have 180 degrees of horizontal movement and 90 degrees of vertical movement. This means that not only can they scan their entire surroundings, but when they're ready to shoot out their sticky tongue to catch a bug, they can focus both eyes on their prey for better clarity and depth perception. Now, something like this could actually be beneficial to an animal like the chupacabra. Feeding on blood can take quite some time, so having chameleon-like eyes would be a great way to stay vigilant while feeding, but also help them track and attack their prey more accurately. So while I don't totally disagree with the depiction of the eyes here, I think it might not be the most accurate. Now let's take a look at those little wing flaps. Honestly, this one I think is just totally unnecessary. I don't think it would have had any evolutionary need for those, so it wouldn't have developed. I think really this is just the artist maybe referencing the Mayan god Camazotz, who was the god of death and often depicted as a bat. Chupacabra is sometimes associated with Camazotz, so that's why I think they added the little winglets. But from a biology standpoint, I don't think that this animal would have actually evolved like that. Lastly, I want to talk about the limbs and claws. First off, I don't think Chupacabra would, or possibly does, have claws like that. All of the killings talk about puncture wounds and being drained of blood. Claws like that wouldn't really make sense in that case. Now, it probably is just the artist adding stuff to look cool, but it's not super scientifically accurate. And lastly, those claws and limbs don't look like they would lend themselves well to running on all fours. I would think that the chupacabra would be an ambush predator, and so it would need to be able to move fast and surprise prey. And limbs like that don't look like they would be very great for that. Now, I'm probably nitpicking, but you know what? That's what YouTubers are here for. The other artist depiction that I want to talk about is this one, because honestly, I think it's a little more accurate to what the monster would actually look like. Now, the tail is maybe a bit long, and I don't think it would be pointed like that, and the claws are maybe a bit bigger than they need to be, and the eyes probably wouldn't glow like that. But those are really the only issues I have with this one. I think it would make a lot more sense for this thing to walk on all fours, and have much less pronounced spikes. That would help it stay low and silent and undetected while it hunts. There's one last thing I want to talk about before I give my final verdict, and that's the diet. Before we talk about that, though, take a quick second to like and subscribe. It really helps a small channel like me, and it lets me know what kind of content you want to see more of. Anyway, let's talk about blood. So, we do know that it's possible for an animal to live off of blood alone. There are plenty of animals that do this: mosquitoes, leeches, and of course, most famously, the vampire bat. But how much would a chupacabra need? Well, probably a pretty decent amount. A vampire bat, for example, needs to eat about 40% of its own body weight in blood every night. And one article I was reading said that a human vampire would need to completely drain 6 people per night. See, the problem here is that blood isn't that nutritious, at least not when it's your only source of food. There are certain things like protein that there's a lot of in blood, but it's very low in other nutrients and is very low in calories as well. It's hard to say exactly how much blood a chupacabra would need to survive, as we don't really know its weight or size or habits, but assuming that they're about the same size as other predators in the area, for example coyotes, one adult sheep would maybe be enough to feed at least 1 or 2 chupacabra. So the fact that oftentimes multiple sheep will be found at the same time, as many as 8 in some cases, to me is clear evidence that they're pack hunters. This, of course, would be beneficial when it came time to actually feed because, as I mentioned earlier, it takes a while to feed on blood. Most animals that feed on blood don't actually suck. In the case of bats, they'll bite to create a puncture wound and then simply lap up the blood as it bleeds out. Their saliva has a numbing agent and anticoagulants, so not only does the animal that they're feeding on not really feel it, but the wound would also heal very slowly so that way they have time to feed. And that's a good thing for our hematophagic friends, because most of the time it takes a bat about 20 to 30 minutes to feed. And that's potentially how long it would take a chupacabra to feed as well. Smaller animals like mosquitoes can only take a few minutes, but larger animals like leeches or bats take a bit longer. Chupacabras, if they're around the same size as a coyote, would potentially need up to 10 or even 15 or more liters of blood a day, depending on how big and active they are. These are just estimates about a hypothetical animal, so it's kind of hard to lock in an exact number, but based on what I found, I feel like this is a fairly accurate estimate. Anyway, it would probably take at least 20 minutes for a feeding, and they would probably need that to break up into multiple feedings. So pack hunting makes a lot of sense because one could keep watch while the others feed. Vampire bats can actually feed on all the blood they need in one sitting, though. But the only reason that they can do that is that they have a very fast metabolism and are constantly digesting and peeing out the excess water while they feed. It's possible that a chupacabra could do the same thing or possibly something similar, but even if they did something like that, the feeding would still take a really long time. Either way, due to their potential feeding habits, as well as the fact that many times multiple animals are found at once, strongly supports the idea that they are pack hunters. Okay, so we've talked about sightings, possible physical descriptions, feeding, and potential pack behavior. So what does this animal actually look like? Well, I think it would be on the smaller side, probably about the size of a coyote at the biggest. Blood isn't that great nutritionally, and so the bigger an animal is, the more that becomes a problem. The reported scaliness I don't think is actually scales. I think it's more likely to be a hairless mammal. The spikes on the back are possible, but there isn't really a biological precedent for large spikes. So if it does have spikes, they're probably on the smaller side. It would probably walk on all fours and have fangs to cause the initial puncture wound. Now, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the reports specifically mentioned 3 puncture wounds, So they would potentially have a middle fang as well as two fangs on the side as well. Their diet would be fairly restrictive due to the fact that blood isn't a great source of nutrients. So total populations would probably stay pretty low, but they would most likely live and hunt in family oriented packs. Young would probably stay with the pack until they're old enough to strike out on their own and either join a pack or start their own. Pack living would also help with survival because they'd be able to watch each other's backs while feeding. So, if the Chupacabra does exist, this is probably the version that's most likely. But how likely is it that this thing actually exists? Well, in my opinion, not very likely. As I've mentioned several times now, blood isn't a great food source. And to me, that's the main reason why I don't think these things could exist, at least not on a blood only diet. Most animals that eat exclusively blood are pretty small. If chupacabras supplement their diet with other foods, then it might be possible, but most reports say that the animals were only drained of blood and not eaten. Maybe they hunt other wild animals, though, or supplement their diet with berries or fish. I don't know. Ultimately, I think I would give this animal a rating of probably not out of 10. The only thing here that I think would make it more likely is if they ate more than just blood, but then that's really just a coyote with mange. I don't think chupacabras are out there. These reported sightings are probably just weird coyotes or dogs with mange, or maybe it was aliens. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. Remember to stay curious.